Just imagine for a second a world that was built for one single reason, to strip away everything that makes you, well, you. A place where your name, your history, your entire future is just erased. Now, in the Nazi concentration camps, this is exactly what happened to millions of people. It was a systematic dehumanization. So here's the paradox, the huge question at the heart of what we're talking about today. In a place designed to absolutely crush the human spirit, how did anyone manage to survive psychologically?
The key to that whole mystery might just be hiding in this quote from the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. Psychiatrist Viktor Frankl saw this idea proven true in the most extreme way you can possibly imagine. This idea, that a why, a reason to live, can help you endure any how, any circumstance. That's the thread we're going to follow.
And our guide on this journey is Frankl himself, through his incredible book, Man's Search for Meaning. And you know, this is so much more than a history book. It's the inside story from a psychiatrist who lived through Auschwitz, who's observing his own mind and the minds of his fellow prisoners, all to answer that one question: how do you survive?
Okay, so when a prisoner first arrived at a camp like Auschwitz, they went into the first psychological phase, pure shock. Frankl talks about this weird thing he called the delusion of reprieve. It was this desperate, totally illogical hope that somehow it would all be okay, even as they saw the smoke pouring from the crematoriums.
That shock was immediately made worse by this systematic erasure. The very first step was cutting every single tie to your old life. Your clothes, your family photos, your wedding ring, poof, it was all confiscated. In a single moment, all the physical proof of who you were was just gone.
And then came something even deeper, even more profound. They took your name. You became a number, tattooed right onto your skin. It was the ultimate act of turning a person into a thing. Dr. Viktor Frankl, the respected neurologist, just ceased to exist. In his place was prisoner number 119104.
But Frankl made one last, desperate attempt to hold on to his why. He'd actually managed to hide the manuscript for his life's work inside his coat. He went up to a prisoner who'd been there a while, and he just pleaded with him, explaining that this stack of papers, this was his entire purpose in life. And the response he got? It was a brutal, one-word lesson in his new reality. That one word just shattered every last illusion Frankl had. It screamed at him that everything he valued in his old life, his work, his identity, his purpose, it meant absolutely nothing here.
And that was the moment everything changed. Frankl knew he had to consciously let go of his past. Now, this wasn't giving up. It was a necessary psychological break. To survive this new world, his old self had to die. And that right there was the end of the first phase, shock, followed by this grim, total acceptance.
So after that first wave of shock wears off, prisoners entered a second phase, and it was defined by this strange paradox. On the outside, you had this necessary apathy that just took over. But on the inside, for the people who survived, something incredible happened. A rich, intense inner life started to bloom. Apathy here was purely a defense mechanism. I mean, think about it. To handle the daily beatings, the constant death, the cruelty, you had to build a protective shell around your feelings. Emotions like disgust or pity or horror, they became luxuries you just couldn't afford. It was a kind of emotional death, but it was absolutely essential for survival. So you have this insane contrast. The external world was a complete nightmare. Starvation, filth, violence. But the internal world, that became the last refuge. Prisoners would escape into these vivid memories of people they loved. They'd find this deep, profound beauty in the color of a sunset. They'd share a dark joke, or they'd develop this really deep spiritual life. This inner world was the one and only thing the guards could never, ever touch.
Frankl himself had his most powerful realization about this inner world while he was on a death march, freezing, barely able to walk. He just started thinking really intensely about his wife. And then that moment it hit him, a fundamental truth. Love is bigger than physical presence. In his mind, his wife was so real, so powerful, that it filled him with this feeling of bliss that made all the suffering just irrelevant. It didn't even matter if she was still alive. The love itself was his salvation.
And all of this focus on an inner life, it all leads to Frankl's single most important discovery. It's the revelation that is the absolute core of his entire philosophy. It's an idea that has given hope to millions, and he found it in the deepest, darkest pit of human despair.
Think about that for a second. They could take everything. Your home, your family, your name, your hair, your health. They could control every single aspect of your physical life. But
they could never ever take away your final freedom, the freedom to choose how you respond. Even there, you could still choose your attitude.
And what that meant was that a person's character wasn't just some product of the horrible environment. Frankl saw proof of this every single day. He talked about these men who would walk through the huts comforting other people, giving away their very last piece of bread. They were exercising that ultimate freedom, choosing dignity, choosing compassion, choosing to find meaning in a place that was designed to have none.
So why does any of this matter to us, right here, right now? Well, because Frankl's ideas, they reach so far beyond the barbed wire of the camps, they give us this incredibly powerful way to think about our own universal search for meaning, especially when we're facing our own struggles.
Frankl basically argues that, look, suffering is part of life, right? You can't escape it. So if life as a whole is going to be meaningful, then suffering itself has to have the potential for meaning. The real challenge isn't about trying to avoid suffering, it's about finding a purpose inside of it.
And he actually laid out 3 main paths to find this meaning. First, through work, by what we give to the world, what we create. Second, through love, by what we take from the world in our relationships and our experiences. And third, and this is the one most relevant to his story, through courage, the attitude we choose to take when we are faced with suffering that we simply cannot change.
Frankl often thought about this quote from Dostoevsky. I mean, what on earth does it mean to be worthy of your sufferings? It means seeing them not just as some pointless pain, but as a challenge. It's the belief that the way we carry our burdens, the dignity we bring to them, that itself is a huge, genuine inner achievement.
And so Frankl's work really leaves us with this question that is both incredibly personal and universal to all of us. He proved that you can find meaning in the darkest places imaginable just by exercising that final freedom, the freedom to choose your attitude. So the question he poses to every single one of us is this: when you're faced with the unavoidable suffering in your own life, how will you choose to respond?